So has being a parent helped you become a top agent? And specifically, I know some of you said, yeah, it's helped me as far as leveraging. How have you leveraged activities from your children's school or extracurricular activities into business? I know we heard a little bit. Does anybody want to dig deeper in that?
I think it has helped me get on the path to becoming a top agent, because you hear, at least when I started, you hear all the top agents here say that time blocking is incredibly important for success. And when you have a bunch of different schedules to juggle, you really have no choice but to time block. And so, I mean, there's a period in the day from 5 to 7:30 that I'm just unavailable, and that has helped me be more comfortable and straightforward with clients and say, I can't show you homes at this time. Unfortunately, it's just like a restaurant business, right? You work when everyone's eating, and you don't eat at the given time, right? So we are working when everyone's off of work, unfortunately. So we kind of miss out on that family time sometimes. And in the beginning, it was kind of tough turning down people because you don't want to lose business, right? You want to get as much business as possible. Now I've accepted that fact. It's worked out. I haven't lost any business from turning down people after hours. Although this past weekend, a babysitter canceled an hour before showings, and I had to cancel. And of course, clients I've showed 30 or 40 homes to immediately called the listing agents directly, and that's going to happen, unfortunately.
Wow.
But it hasn't backfired at all, and it actually makes you feel more comfortable and feel more like a business owner. And I think that the sacrifice has actually turned into a positive.
Sure, absolutely. I know that we've had some. I'd love to hear how do you specifically leverage that event that is involved with the school or with the play?
Well, in my case, because I'm working all the time.
Well, you do rodeo, right?
Well, yes, and I'm also the program director for the Memorial Spring Branch Rotary Club, and also in the past was kind of an assistant scoutmaster and everything else. But let's face it, just as in any business or in life, it seems like 80% is being done by the 20%, the Pareto principle. So there are certain things you don't compromise on. And because I'm not present on a lot of things here and there, that's why every year I was always the chaperone for the kindergarten when they went to the zoo. Or if there was, sometimes if there was a church mission project, I would help chaperone and help put roofs on houses with my kids. Or there's certain things that I wouldn't compromise on, but I was always working, and I would work around things. But as long as I was there, you're not going to be able, for the most part, you're not going to be able to be there for every single thing that you think is the most important thing that will happen in a family's life. But when you're there for quite a few special occasions here and there, they remember that. Even though they know you work all the time. When my son was little, I remember he was about 3 or 4 years old, and someone asked him what his mommy's name was, and he just stood up so nice and proud, and he said, "My mommy's name is Genevieve.Roland@Trox.com," because he heard that all the time, and I was always on the phone. Or one time, my little daughter, I call it the Fred Flintstone mobile. Everybody's had that little yellow plastic car, that little Tykes car. And my daughter's driving around the living room. She's probably 3 or 4 years old. Remember, they're sponges, so you have to be careful. And she had one of my old flip phones, and she's driving around the car in the living room, and she's talking on the phone. And I went up to her and I said, "Ooh, Brianna, are you conducting a business deal?" And she set the phone down for just a second. She looked at me and said, "Shh, shh. Mommy, I'm on the phone." And I was like, oh, crap.
So they do model your behavior.
So they model your behavior, but they also remember, you took them to this, you did this, but they also see how hard you work as well, and hopefully you instill that in your kids. So even though they see this, again, modeling your behavior, as long as you do it with integrity and you interject things here and there, they're going to remember that too. And they know you're doing things for the family, but they know you have to work around it as well.
Do any of you have kids, we'll get to you in just a second, any of you have kids that want to become real estate agents now because of?
My son just got his
your
license,
son got his
and
license.
I'm teaching him how to flip a house now.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Just to reiterate what Kay said about getting involved in your school, I try to make it to as many birthday parties as possible. I coach teenage basketball. Before I got into real estate, I make sure to write all the weekly emails to them so that they see my signature at the bottom and that they know that I'm a realtor. Parents have contacted me just at practices and start talking about real estate, and almost helped one of them. I've helped a couple coaches buy houses, and it always comes up in conversations at birthday parties. And just like Kay said, I never bring up the topic ever because you don't want to be that realtor and be pushy and everything like that. But if it comes up, I definitely, it's a good idea.
So being a parent is the only reason why I'm a realtor. When my kid was born, I really had to come to Jesus and was like, I've got to do something that I love that justifies me being away from my kid. And I did not want to be a stay-at-home mom, nor did I have that option. So I had wanted to be a realtor since I was a teenager, and but I was, a brainiac, so I went and was a lawyer instead. But I went and got my real estate license, and I kept my law practice open for 6 months, did them part-time, and decided I was going to get sued for malpractice because I never wanted to touch law again. I loved real estate. I think it's really important that if you do have kids that you love what you're doing, especially if you're doing real estate, because it's so all-consuming. I talk to my kids all the time, my older one anyway, about how much I love what I'm doing, how many people I'm helping, how many families I'm helping. He asks questions about what's going on with my clients. He's 7. I am building a business that I hope at least one of my kids will want to take over one day. That is something that real estate's something anyone can do. If you love, if you love people and you love real estate, if you love the properties or something about properties. I think either of my kids would be great realtors, and I'm building a business that they could take over. As a corporate tax planner, I would die before I let one of my kids be a corporate tax planner. And I didn't really know that I hated what I was doing until I started doing something else and realized how much I loved it. So I think keeping your big why at the forefront of your mind, and it's not just to make money so that you can feed your kids, because you can do that in any job that's a whole lot less stressful. But my big why is to make a difference in people's lives, and I feel like I do that at a very high level, and I tell my kids about it all the time, and I'm teaching them, informing them in who I want them to be through that. So, and then kids activities, I go to everything I can go to. I host all the school parties. We're leaders in all the kids' activities. I am not a room mom because I am super ADD, but I go to all the parties. I'm going to a Christmas party today. And I'm friends with all the kids' parents. And at my kids' school, all the parents work pretty much, both parents. So you end up meeting the other parents who want to socialize and stuff, and you end up meeting the top 80% who do, or top 20% who do 80% of the work. So you make really good connections that way. And I don't know, I've sold a lot of houses to a lot of my kids' friends, families.
Jen, you set up a tennis tournament. You have a
Yes.
tennis tournament at the club that your kids go to every year. Does
Yes.
anything come from that?
Yes. So that's what I was going to say. You need to leverage those activities that your children are in. There's so many new agents that come to me, or when we teach Ignite or Buffini and we tell them to make their calls. I don't know who to call. Who do I call? And it's like, well, if they have kids, if you have kids, that's the best avenue. And you don't have to bring up real estate because, Kay, I build relationships. I'm a people business. I'm not in sales. I'm building relationships. But yes, they're going to know that I'm a realtor because a lot of those people I'm calling are people from the club, the tennis club. My billboard is up at the tennis club. My picture's there. I sponsor several events there. Even at the high school, I was the booster club president for years. I'm thankfully not the president this year, but my banner is up there at the tennis club. So everybody at the, not at the tennis club, at the school courts, I pay the sponsorship for a lot of the activities that my kids are into. And I'm there at those events. So when other parents are coming, then they see my face up there. They can recognize that's who I am, and I don't sit there and talk about real estate with them, but they always eventually come up to me and say, oh, I have a question for you about this and this. Can you help me with this? So they know I'm in real estate. So I kind of do it organically so that I don't have to talk about it with them and ask them, who do you know who wants to buy or sell real estate every single time I see them.
When you ask or when they find out you're a real estate agent, I'd love to hear this from the panel, is how's the market a common response from them?
Yes.
What's your reply to that?
I say the market's going well because there's always some part of the market that's going well. And I say, why do you ask? Do you have any particular questions?
That was Gary Keller. It's like, fantastic. Why do you ask? Putting it back on them. Oh, I have a friend, or I'm interested. That's kind of when you draw it out. But I'd love to hear what you guys say to that.
So my teenage son says, Mom's building a real estate empire.
Nice.
A family empire. But when NAR puts out this statistics saying that trust and honesty is what people want most in an agent, I feel like our kids are a great way to display that, right? Because when we take on those roles at school or wherever, and we fulfill our duties faithfully, we do what we say we're going to do, they see our integrity, that naturally sets the stage for them to trust you as an agent.
That's a great point.
And then I get my kids involved. Like in the summer, a lot. They go with me on showings. And I have clients who say, how did you raise kids like this? Like your kids look me in the eye and they can talk to me, you know? It's weird to me that that stands out as unusual, right? That should be the norm. But it's not the norm, and it makes you look good. And then my kids will, if I have a client with young children, I'll take one of my teens along, and they can help watch those little kids so that the parents aren't so distracted while I'm showing. And then my kids get asked to babysit, and I'll host parties for my families when they move into their home, and my kids will go along. My clients will invite their friends and their kids, and then my kids will babysit.
What a great way to network that. Callie?
I was going to say, one thing I've been doing this year about the market question is I've been sending out a quarterly video email with a market update to my clients, and I just kind of use like the highlights from the MLS report or like articles I've read, and I've gotten like the best feedback from that. I've had a few people like reach out and want like a CMA, and so then I know that they're kind of like in the market, and so that's definitely something I'm going to continue doing is like the quarterly videos.
Awesome. Good. All right. This is our last question. I just want you to just break it down and go deep on this. How do you cope when you are feeling overwhelmed? This has got to happen with the kids, and this person has to see right now, and I can't find anyone else to help me. How do you get through that? Other than alcohol.
I would say faith.
Okay.
You know, I just look to God for creative answers, and He brings them in really unusual ways.
Have you got an example?
Trying to think of something specific that's happened recently, but I just pray over my difficulty, and I just pray over whatever the difficulty is, and answers come in the strangest ways. Sometimes it's a phone call from someone volunteering to help with kids. Right when I need it.
I just look at like if you have a bunch of clients, like, hey, I want to put an offer in here. We just had an inspection done. We have to review this. We have to do that. I've got to go pick up the kids. I have another kid crying. You know, whatever. I just kind of think about. I look at my little whiteboard that has my business on it, and I just think about what are the tasks that I need to complete today, and how long each will take, and once you kind of put everything in front of you, you realize that you don't really have to take that much time out of this moment to get everything done, and it kind of brings a calming feeling over.
So kind of putting everything in perspective by putting it in front of you in writing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say the same thing.
Sebby, to do this from day one, and you've been in every line of business. You've owned your own business, and you did this as truly a single mom from the time of birth of your child. Like, you've got to have some challenges that have happened along the way where you just put your hands up.
A lot of challenge.
A lot
A lot
of
of challenge. I'm a single mom, and there is no dad involved. So, not physically, not financially. So, I learned this as I go. I communicate the situation with my son, and sometimes he come up with a solution. I'm embarrassed to say that. Sometimes he says, "Mom, you mean this is not that complicated? Do this, and then we do this at this time." And I said, "All right, are you sure?"
you're not having him write contracts, though. He's 14.
He does answer my text when I'm driving.
Yeah, that's good that you're doing that.
But I wanted to emphasize on that subject. It does come to that overwhelming situation for me many, many, many times. And what I normally do is, I want to say something very simple, and it's funny, but it always works for me. First of all, I don't make the decision on the spot when someone calls me. For the most part, because I do commercial, I have to actually be there and showing you stuff, whether it's my listing or not. And so I learned to say, allow me a little time to make the arrangement. So I get off the phone and I start thinking how I can do this, because time helps to come up with better solution rather than on the phone making the decision. And the other thing that I do exactly what he says. When things are really too much for me, I put them on the paper and prioritize them. It does very much help how I can manage my time and situation around it. Funny, I catch up with all of them. It does work for me. I hope that helps you too.
Brenda, you've had 2 young ones, and you just kind of are getting ready for another here.
Yes, I am. Coping strategies. I don't know. Take a nap. Let time. Sometimes it's just like, I feel like there's always a way that things work themselves out in our industry, and it's not at the end of the day life or death. And there's always a solution. Reach out to people who know more than you, and talk to others who have more experience, because they can help guide you through a lot of little things.
How long had you lived here in Houston when you got into the business?
A year.
You came from the Valley.
Right.
So it's not like you had this massive index.
No.
And so you worked it, and you didn't get pregnant right away when you moved here,
Yeah.
but you just constantly worked your business. You used to, is it spook houses down in the Valley? Was that your thing or something like that?
I'm sorry.
What did
yeah.
you, so.
I used to do haunted houses in the Rio Grande Valley.
Yeah, so couldn't get further away from real estate. But this means that anybody can do this. Anybody can do this, because you've done it at such a successful level, and it's not with great bravado. You do it behind the scenes. Your sister now is here as an agent, as a part of your support team.
Right, yeah. And I mean, you make decisions and you time block. And when I had my first child, I made a decision I was going to take 3 months off. I didn't care. I mean, I had worked my way to a certain level where I was like financially okay, comfortable or confident enough that I could take that time, and I did it. This job allows you to do this career, and the life choices that you make. I just decided I wasn't going to take calls. I wasn't going to do anything. I was going to spend time at home with my babies, and I did it the first time. I did it the second time. I'll do it again. But that's a personal choice, right? I get to make that decision, because I can decide to work, but and then when I ramp back up, I'll go back to doing open houses and doing everything that I normally should be doing. But you work, you have the flexibility to do what you need to do, I think, or what your life choices are going to be.
You still have to have discipline to do the things you need to do, the lead generating. Okay, thank you to our panel. Can we give them a round of applause? I mean, and we do have breakfast, but I want to open it up to anybody have any questions now that we'll throw a mic out there.
Thank you, guys. That was terrific.
Sure, it's all right. It's for her kid. Thank you, Kat.
Okay, I have a question back to when you travel, or let's say you are indisposed for whatever reason. what I get the transaction part. My question is more is about, we do inspections, we do appraisals, whether you have a listing or on the buyer side, it's this, you still have to track the process. It's the same thing. There's negotiations, there's last minute craziness that nobody expected, but there's, a potential problem. Who handles that?
Okay, so if you didn't have somebody in place, you're on vacation, who would handle that
Family.
A
piece?
realtor friend. I always had my realtor friends do all that. Like I went to Europe a few years ago and I was very MIA and there was like this huge inspection negotiation that went down, very dramatic, but my realtor friend just took care
You
of it.
have to trust that person.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Anybody else?
build
Let's
friendships.
say you don't make friends. Microphone.
I set expectations up front. Hey, I'm going to be out of town for a week. I put on my out of office on my email. I expect to work when I'm on vacation. My wife understands the business that I'm in, and she's I don't like it. I would rather not do it, but I understand that only be in the business for a few years. I'm going to have to do this to eventually get to a place where a lot of these people are who have other people doing it for them.
Would it be expected that a transaction coordinator would be able to set up something as elaborate as an inspection?
Not sure. It's tough for me to delegate, and I'm sure they can. So that's something that I have to get over. But I love going to the beach. Most of the trips that we go on are the beach, and I love working on the beach. It feels fantastic. You're going to be laying there.
Nothing like writing a contract in a Speedo.
Yeah, I'm going to be laying there. I'm going to be on the phone. When we go visit my in-laws in Baltimore, it's a perfect excuse to get out of the room. I need to go do some work, and I hop on my phone, and that's it. I expect it. I enjoy it. I don't have any else. And it's really not that much. And they always say if you don't have any business and you want business, go out of town. And it's so true.
Yeah.
Because every time I go out of town, something happens.
Anybody else on that one?
Yes, I was going to add, now sometimes those things do just happen spur of the moment, but typically you're working with a buyer that's going to buy something real soon, and the next step is doing the inspections. So again, waking up early in the morning, if you have to write that contract, or in the middle of the day, you take a couple of times during that day, there's certain things that you're going to have to do. But if you have gone under contract and you're going out of vacation, going out of town on vacation in a couple of days, you don't have to be at the inspections, but the inspections are going to happen. So you do get with someone, or you ask Michael, hey, Michael, who would you suggest that I talk to that can help me with that? And one of my aha moments, because it was difficult for me to delegate in the beginning, I did everything. I remember Betty Besmer said, I never go on inspections because I don't want to be liable. Let them do that, have the inspection report come back. You don't have to go on inspections. There are lots of things you don't have to do. You just do them because you feel like you have to. So give them a list of inspectors. Let them know ahead of time, this is what you need to do. Schedule at that time. I'll get a copy of the report. And generally, you don't have to be around. But yes, you're going to, unless you're totally remote, you're going to check your emails in the beginning of the day, early in the morning or in the evening, and normally nothing's that crucial. I've negotiated contracts while I was standing in line to get on a roller coaster at Disney World because if something came up really hectic, okay, guys, I need to take a few minutes off.
That's why the line takes so long to get through. People like you. Anybody else? Jen?
Well, yeah, and I was going to say transaction coordinator. So I did let go once. We put a house in contract, and I left the next day. That's when Catherine was in Zupin. She was a transaction coordinator, and I trust her. She has a real estate license, and I set everything up, and I said, Catherine, I'm leaving. Please arrange to pick up option fee. Please da-da-da-da. And she arranged everything. That was the fee for the transaction coordinator. And so I was comfortable knowing that someone was taking care of that. I still checked in on it to make sure it was done, but I didn't have to be boots on the ground doing it. So especially for new agents, if you're going somewhere and something's about to be executed, there's transaction coordinators in the office that you can just hire to do that one transaction. You don't have to have an assistant or anything like that you've completely trained to do all that. They already know how to.
Awesome. All right. Any other questions? I'll pass the mic right behind you, Simeon. Thank you.
So, to piggyback off of what this question goes off of, mental health. How much?
Mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mental
Okay.
health. Yeah, mental health. I mean, you get burnt out. You have family time. What is a good allotted time for me time that you guys might feel is sufficient?
Is anybody that's structured who's got, I got to do this, go get a massage or whatever it is? What's the relief and what does that look like and how long?
So I dealt with a lot of crises. For example, when I was very, very young, I lost my father, and it was difficult for me to digest. So, and everyone around me kind of end up depending on me, including my mother. So it was difficult for me. Mental health was important so I can manage problems around me. Soon I learned meditation. It's a big step of helping me in mental and physical health. And there's a simple method that it takes away 20 minutes of your day, but it just brings a miracle. In the very beginning, I didn't believe it, but once I start doing that, I saw the effect. So I do need it, and I use that, and it's the time that I do get interrupted sometimes, even though I don't want to, but I get up early to do that so that I get less interruption. So that works for me.
How often are you doing that?
Whenever the most overwhelmed I am, the more often I do. Normally, I'm supposed to do that twice a day, but I should tell you, the most I do is 3 times a week.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? What's the relief?
I think definitely mental and emotional stability is super important with kids. But the good thing is that we can create our own schedules, which I need to do this more. So we can take a 30-minute, an hour and go to the driving range or whatever to relieve any type of stress we have. But for me, it's just kind of when everyone goes to sleep. Even though we all need sleep, that's kind of my 30 minutes to an hour of quiet. But during the day, I think you should just take advantage of being self-employed and do something that makes you happy.
But still lead generate.
Yeah, and I just want to also note for the women, postpartum depression is very real, along with, even for new fathers also experience it, and even just diagnosable issues that folks have. I've worked in mental health for many years, so I appreciate this conversation and the question. I don't know that I'm taking as good care of myself as I could. I'm in a phase of my life where it's just go, go, go. I think I do try to go to bed early. Basically, I'm in bed with the kids around 8, and I go to bed and sleep around 8:30, 8:45. So that's been helping me to at least get a few hours of sleep, even if I get interrupted. At least I get a little bit of extra sleep. But being really aware, I wasn't aware when I had postpartum depression after my second child was born. And it was months later that I look back and realized that's what had happened. And so getting help where you can. None of us have really talked about, hiring a cleaning person or someone to fold your laundry, or leveraging those small things in our household might be the help that you need more than the transaction coordinator at this phase in your life, right? So that same money you would give for a transaction coordinator, you can get someone to do your laundry or whatever, or cook or something else. So think about where do you need the leverage, not just in business, but if it's your home life, get the leverage where you need it the most.
Awesome.
And
Great question.
I wanted to piggyback on that is everybody has a different level of what they need, but everybody has something that they need. I know my coach, one of my tasks for every week is to take one afternoon off because he knows I won't. And he even asked me the other day, when are you taking off for Christmas? What do you mean? We take off for Christmas? I was like, I know I'll be showing up until Christmas. And so it just really depends on you. You have to make time for yourself. And so I've started trying to go to the gym. And it was something I could have worked into my schedule before, but I did not make it a priority. So it's what you make a priority that gets you to where you need to be. But you do have to leverage other things, like Bensi said. So it was very, very hard for me to hire a cleaning person, anything like that. I mean, especially from my culture, we took care of all that stuff. Those are the things that we're used to doing. So, and I stayed home for 11 years. How can I hire someone? And I remember coming home one day the cleaning lady was there, the pool person was there, and the lawn care was there. And I walked in, I'm like, when did this become my life? You know, and it was just really weird to have that happen. But you know what? I closed on, like, I think it was a $600,000 home that day. And so it was totally worth it.
So
But I didn't have-
$18,000 for closing on that, or $100 for the maid.
Exactly. So those are things you have to just let yourself do so that you can do work. And it was really hard for me. I talked to Michael about it several times. He kept telling me, leverage that out. I'm like, how do I leverage that out? I mean, so we have leveraged that out, and it's made a big difference. So it's not just those transaction coordinators and assistants. You leverage out.
Well, but you grew into being able to do this. Look, your situation is your situation, like we heard here. It still is an opportunity. If you're making $15,000, $20,000 on this deal, why not take care of all that other stuff with somebody else? Now, in the early stages, it's kind of tough to say, okay, I'm going to go get all these services. But to build that in, if you hate doing this, get someone to take care of this. And if this doesn't pay you $100 an hour, it doesn't make sense for you not to have someone else do it. That's what you want to grow into, and you have. It took a little pushing.
Can I just say something really quick I just want to say that for everybody, having kids or having a family while you're doing real estate, the major thing you have to realize is to give yourself grace, and you can't do it all. I mean, whether you're looking to make $3 million or $25 million or whatever it is, whatever your success is, you can be successful, and it might not be, like, I don't ever want to make I would like to make $25 million, but that's not my goal. But whatever my goal is, I have in there, my goal is dependent upon the time that I spend with my kids. Okay, I only have a certain goal because I know that I want to spend time with my children. And what's the point in working for me if I'm not going to be there for my kids? Because the whole point, my why, is to provide a better life for them. And if I'm not there for them, it's not a better life. So you have to remember that. And I'm going to get emotional, but the one thing that was really, really hard for me is I remember it was like 2012 or something like that. Family reunion was in Dallas. And I wasn't planning on going, but then some international people were coming, and they called and asked if I would be there because they wanted to meet me. So I was like, okay, I have to go. My son's birthday is February 16th, and it's always right during family reunion. So I was like, oh my goodness, and I didn't want to leave him, and so I did ask. I was like, hey, Tyler, so I want to get a family reunion. They've called me, and is that going to be okay? I know it's over your birthday, and I won't be here on your birthday. And he just looked at me, he's like, Mommy, I know this is your work. You have to do this. It's okay. And I said, okay, thank you, sweetie. And he said, okay. He walked out of the room and just started crying. And it was just the hardest thing for me. So, I mean, they really try to be strong for you also. And that life, family balance is going to be really hard. But you just have to give yourself grace and work around it.
So Jen has us all emotional. No, but you took the words out. The extending grace, I think, is so important. And even with our partners, our spouses, I was actually thinking, Michael, we should have a panel for the spouses of realtors.
They're watching the kids.
No, they're not.
I know they're not.
Because it's also about understanding and some things that we have to let go as a family. And we just had, we have the clean laundry bed in our house. That means the laundry once it's clean, it goes on the bed in that room, and we find the
Grab your stuff.
and you figure it out. Pool table, or whatever. We have those things that it's not,
Where's my sock?
Exactly. And it's hard because my husband is like, you're home, or you're not at an office every day, or whatever. Why can't we get some of our ish together to get this stuff done? And now we're all in on it because he's had an opportunity to try to get it together, and it's not worked either, right? So we extend grace, we figure out the plans, we let things go that are maybe not critical, and I'd rather have that time with the kids. I'd rather make that quality memory, or go on a trip, or do something else, and the laundry will just be on the laundry bed. It's okay.
Yeah. Wow, great perspective. See you, buddy.
Thank you very much.
Genevieve?
To answer the part about being overwhelmed, and nobody said this yet, but I'm sure some of us do this. Well, a couple of times, Michael did mention I do have a place in New Braunfels. That was a goal that I had for almost 20 years, but I really started
On the
thinking
water.
about it. Yeah, I did start thinking about it in bold, and I achieved that a couple of years ago. And when I get there, everything just kind of goes, ugh. But until that point, when things get overwhelmed, I would say about a couple times a year, I have a breakdown. And at least half the time it's while I'm on the phone with one of my coaches. But, with my coach. I've had a few different coaches. But you get to the point where, I don't know, maybe guys go in a closet and scream, or they go run around the block or something like that. But sometimes it comes, you just get so overwhelmed, you're like, all right. And it's building up for a few days, and my husband says, all right, Genevieve, you're about to blow. And I said, no, but I can't right now. I don't have time. And then maybe in a day or two, just the simplest little thing will trigger me, and that's it. And then I just start crying, and I got to go in another room, and I just cry for about 5 or 10 minutes. And then, boom, it's out of my system, and I get great. I feel great afterwards. But then sometimes it happens on the phone with my coach, because all of a sudden it's just built up, and then this happens. And then, like my coaches have always said, many times you have to have a breakdown to have a breakthrough. And you'll break down, and then it all becomes clear, like, bam, I got the answer. And now everything's fine, and then you feel like $1 million again. So I'm not too proud to say, hey, twice a year I break down for about 10, 15 minutes and just cry. And then I'm good. So.
But you've also had closings around the 14 million mark.
Well, yeah, but that's how I do it. Sometimes I have to go in the closet and just close the door and just, bah! And that's how I get rid of it, and that's how I cope. And sometimes I run around the block. Sometimes I do that and go to New Braunfels.
While you're screaming?
Yeah, no.
Gabby, did you have a point?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody on the panel. It was amazing how many people we have watching from home. Makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, we want to thank everybody who's been watching at home.
There's a lot of people watching from home.
Any other last comments, team? Let me get a mic over to her, please. Thank you so much.
Hi, good morning. Thank you guys for all your feedback. I have a question. What do you guys do at 5 a.m. in Florida, which is 4 a.m. here? You're not making calls. What are you doing, like organizing your day or catching up on emails, doing contracts?
When you're waking up, what are you doing?
When we're on vacation? Is that what you're talking about?
Anytime.
Well, let's go ahead and just say your
people
daily.
that wake up at 4 a.m., I'm like, if you're not at the gym, I'm not going to call someone at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m.
That's a good
No,
one.
no one's going to do that.
I get up early in the morning because I unfortunately don't have the spouse support that a lot of these panel people do. My husband is just now coming around to accepting it, and I'm not giving up on that. And so I do all the laundry. I do all the housekeeping. I do all that stuff to prove to him that I can balance and do everything. And
He still thinks this is a hobby.
He still thinks this is a hobby.
Yeah.
And well, that's fine.
You broke 20 million in the last 12 months.
So what I do is I get up early in the morning and I do the laundry. I try to do the dishes without getting in trouble because I'm loud. But, I try to do things like that.
You're loud on purpose. You're like, here's another dish. You hear that?
But you just do those things that and you can't make phone calls, but I'll start a load of laundry and I'll check emails, or I'll just do house things. I mean, we're our own CEO, so I've got to do all the financing stuff too.
So if we're doing that, how much time is spent actually calling a client, not even a client, calling a prospect, lead generating? How much time can you dedicate to that with all the other stuff you got going, and the laundry and the dishes and everything else?
You just fill that in, like in carpool when the kids weren't driving. Then you just fill that in. I mean, so you do have to at least, I personally only block an hour to make phone calls for lead generating.
And do you do the hour?
Not all at one time. I'll do 30 minutes here, I'll do something, and then have another 30 minutes. But when the kids were not driving, then that lead generating was in carpool every morning, because I lived an hour from my kids' school. So I had to, and then I'd drop them off, and then I'd go downtown to college, and then have to be back for sports. So you just fill it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She also takes crack. Okay.
No, but I'm a high I.
Okay.
So I do that when I can't go to sleep if the laundry is not done. Like,
Well, and it's the same thing. I get up, well, my husband typically leaves at 5 or 5:30 in the morning. So I get up, I will doze a little bit here and there, it just depends, or sometimes I'm wide awake. I check emails, and then I throw a load in the washing machine, and hopefully I remember to throw it in the dryer, before the end of the day, and do a few dishes here and there. But because I'm a high I and I get distracted, half the dishes get done, but half the dishes get done, half the laundry gets done, half the email gets done, and then I come back and clean up in between. I'm supposed to, as you know, our job description, number one, is lead generation, lead follow-up, and then go on appointments, negotiate contracts, practice conversations, and role play. I mean, that is our job. Do I do that all the time? No. If I were doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing, I'd be doing $50 million a year. And I'm, 10 to 14 million. But that's because they always say, well, if it's not on the list, I'm kind of a Johnny Cochran thing. If it's not on the list, it doesn't exist. They say, replace it or something. I said, make it rhyme. So, yeah, maybe I'm doing about 15 to 30 minutes in the morning, but then I get interrupted, squirrel. And then I go replace it somewhere else as I'm driving. I'm driving all the time, so I'm on the phone, hands-free. Although that's not allowed, I don't know where it's allowed. And I'll be through a drive-through and I'm talking to people. Just wherever I replace it in different places, it doesn't always have to be on the phone.
So it's not perfectly organized all the time.
It's not perfectly organized all the time. And my husband even jokes now, instead of using the word squirrel, we've all heard that, it's locust. I was walking around the block. I literally had just picked up the phone and I hit call for my husband, and normally as soon as I hit call, I hit speaker. But in between the call button and right before I hit speaker, a locust flew right in front of me, and it went boom, and then I'm watching it. I mean, yes, I get distracted, and I'm thinking, oh, it went from this tree to that tree. I wonder why it didn't go across the street. Meanwhile, I just called my husband. I forgot.
Anybody can do this. I'm telling you. Anybody
can do this. And then a couple minutes later, I'm like, wait, I think I just called my sweetheart. Did you just call me? And by accident, I'm like, oops, sorry. A locust flew in front of me, right in front of that. And that's how my brain works. But you replace it, you do it, it gets done. Nobody's perfect. Yeah, if you followed the MREA book perfectly, you'd be 50 million, 100 million, or whatever.
She's in our next panel called Success on the Spectrum.
Yeah,
does a great job.
But you can do it. I mean, we all have admitted we're not doing it like the book, but you can do it. You make workarounds. Everybody's different, but you'll make it work.
All right, awesome. Does anybody have a go away, last?
I was just going to say, make a few non-negotiables. I make breakfast every morning, and we sit down for breakfast. We can't guarantee what the day is going to be and who's going to sit again together, but we do breakfast. And if you're lucky enough, when we are sitting down at the table for dinner again, put your phone away. Nothing. 30 minutes is not gonna, be the end of the world. Deals
Well, that's
don't
great
fall
advice.
apart
Great
in
advice.
30 minutes. Give your family the nuggets that you can work in a day. That's.
How do you get the 16-year-old not to have the phone?
Oh, he does not. He
Okay.
knows better.
Okay.
He knows better. And Dad's been the only one in trouble
For that.
being on the phone at breakfast. So.
We
Jen?
do that too. We actually eat dinner together 6 out of 7 days a week. And the other day is usually because we have an event that we're going to. And usually the kids are with us. But that is one thing that we've always done. We always have dinner together, regardless if we're coming home 8 o'clock at night from a tennis practice or tournament or something like that. We wait for the others to get home. And one day, just like a year or two ago, one of my sons like, Mom, did you know people don't eat dinner together? I mean, that was the strangest thing to him because that's all he knew. And our policy is no electronics at the dinner table. So, and we sit there and talk.
Be present. That's one thing I got really hurt me when I started in real estate. I was just go, 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 go.
Repeat that because you weren't on the microphone when you first said that.
Be present when you do have quality time with your family. It was really hard for me at the beginning to put the phone down. So my kids called me out on that, and that really hit home. I was like, okay, wow. And still to this day, it bothers me. So I have to turn the phone off and leave it in my office. I can't even have it, when we're watching TV or, anytime. I just really try to put it away because, my kids came to me and said, yeah, you're here, Mom, but you're really not here. And I'm like, wow, wake up call. So that was really something that changed with me.
Awesome. Anybody else?
I want to add something. So I hear what Jen went through. We all did. My son, he was 2 years and a half, and I had to drop him at daycare. And he would sit by the door, and I sit outside crying that I'm dropping him at daycare. So I had all those challenges. Then I pick and choose where I attend. Then I learned this to teach myself, because I was being hurt more than he was, that those events that I have to miss, it'll make him stronger too. So he will never get everything in life, and it's great that we're around to watch and help them to get past the tough time while we're still around. Because, for example, me, I was a spoiled girl, and I had to face difficulties all by myself. And I think that's a great thing, that sometimes we let them to experience that we're not around, not physically, but we're emotionally there, and we're still doing this for them, not just for us. So pick and choose of where you want to be, and be on the important ones, and it makes them stronger. It's not going to hurt them as long as you sometimes around.
Okay, awesome.
I was just going to say, family meals are so important, but I think another thing that's really critical is playing together as a family. And one thing that really helps me mentally break from work is we keep volleyball and badminton set up in the backyard, and we have ping pong on the patio, and we go outside and we play. And that just physically playing with my kids, even as they're pretty much grown up, is, I think, a big part of keeping me healthy mentally and helping me focus on family.
All right. Guys, what a great panel. Thank you again so much. Got breakfast out there. I appreciate you. You've made a difference in people's lives today.